peeps, welcome to another vlog. So today we basically have a whole day of different types of service things that we're going to do. I'm popping out to a building that we typically service, and from what I understand, they have 2 or 3 different types of jobs that we'll be able to sit down and do together, so you can see a wide variety of what kind of service things that I do. I think we have a drain call, I think we have some valves to replace, and the third one might also be valves, so we have to go there and see what exactly the third customer will need. One thing that I do want to say about the entire COVID situation, Dad and I opted to start getting cloth masks rather than disposable masks, kind of like this right here. And the reason why we ended up doing that was because it's just a little bit more kind of environmentally friendly to have masks that you can actually throw into the wash and reuse over and over and over again. And that's also something we started doing with drop cloths. We started getting like the material type of drop cloth so that we can have, you know, 5 or 6, throw them into the wash and get them reused as many times as possible throughout the year. Dad and I do also use plastic as well, but it's something we don't use as common. It's something that we only really use when we know that there's going to be a high potential for dirtying the floor, dirtying an environment, and also if there's going to be a lot of water involved. But a lot of people are trying to get rid of this single-use plastic sort of thing, and I don't think it's a bad sentiment. I think it's a really good idea to get used to doing it that way. That way, again, you're not using as much plastic and it's not going back into the environment and hurting it in whichever way that it would manifest and hurt it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So peeps, let's get to work. Let's have some fun. Oh, and by the way, peeps, you know what to do, baby. Let's go do some delicious plumbing. Peeps, I wanted to pop into the studio so we can talk about what's happening inside this drain call right here. So peeps, I want to talk about this very simple diagram that I'm showing you right here, but essentially we're talking about 2 types of stacks. We're talking about an express stack, and we're also talking about an auxiliary stack. So the first thing that you have to know is we got a call from this building that we typically service, and they essentially said that the first floor is noticing water is backing up from their kitchen into their unit. So even when they're not running water whatsoever, there's a clog somewhere, and as they're sleeping at night, people are washing dishes and the water is coming up and coming through their unit and it's spilling onto the floor, essentially. So for us, this is a major red flag. That tells us that the pipe that's communal to all those units is actually clogged, and the first unit that's always going to see it, unfortunately, is the first floor, the first unit. So the first thing I need to describe to you is what an express stack is, why we use it, and then what an auxiliary stack is. So let's pop down here. I just want to show you something very clearly, okay? The first thing that you have to notice is that we have a building here with multiple floors. The black lines going across are the floors, and then you have a stack going up all the way to the top, and then you have a small stack that picks up a few floors on the bottom floors. So what you'll notice about the long stack, which is called the express stack, that the very first P-trap that's served is on the 5th floor. So you have the basement, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th floor takes the first P-trap, 2nd P-trap, 3rd P-trap, and it goes all the way up. For a time constraint, I didn't draw all the P-traps, but all these floors essentially have traps and fixtures on them, essentially. Now, this isn't up to code right here. I have to draw a bunch of vents in order to make this work. I just want to give you an idea of what's happening behind the wall and in this building. This one stack picks up units from floors 5 all the way up, and this second stack, which is called the auxiliary stack, picks up the bottom 4 floors. Sometimes an auxiliary stack might pick up 5 floors or 6 floors, but essentially it's designed to pick up only the first few floors of a building, and here's the reason why. Right here in this section, the vertical meets the horizontal, you're going to have a 90-degree elbow down there, and that's considered to be the biggest pressure point. And that's going to take on a lot of volume of every floor that goes 5 and above. Over time, what plumbers have noticed and engineers have noticed is this section right here, called the pressure zone, essentially what it means is the most turbulence is going to take place down here, and what they've noticed over time is that the bottom few floors actually take on a couple of issues. Sometimes you'd have the bottom floors actually have their traps siphoned. A lot of times you ended up having tremendous amount of backups that take place on the bottom few floors. So over time, plumbers and engineers eventually decide, you know what, why don't we just go ahead, put in a second stack that only picks up the bottom few floors, which will eliminate a lot of the issues that these floors eventually have. And that's why they have the auxiliary stack. So now that that's explained, what you have to understand is when we find out that the first unit is experiencing water backing into their unit, this is essentially what's happening. Take a look down here. Somewhere in the auxiliary stack, or somewhere on the line that connects to the auxiliary stack, there's a clog. So the clog occurs, and what happens is water starts to fill up, and it continues filling up even when this person's not using it. All 4 floors are using this communal stack, right? But as it's filling up, the very first floor is going to notice water come out of their trap and onto their floor, and that's essentially what we are trying to snake. Now here's the one difficulty about dealing with auxiliary stacks, and it's this: we can't tell if the clog is here still in the auxiliary or if it's further down into the main. So there is a possibility that it is way further down, we just can't see it. And the way it would work is if the clog was further down, what would essentially happen is these 2 pipes right here would end up backing up at the same time, and then it's showing in the auxiliary first rather than in the express stack first, because remember, the express stack's first floor is on the 5th floor, it's not on the 1st floor. That's the whole point of this, okay? So what you're seeing in this video right here is me taking the extra step of putting in a Y with an N clean out on it. And what you have to know is by code in kitchen sinks, you're supposed to actually have clean outs installed by code, but maybe the code was different when this building was being built. And the reason why we like to put a Y with a clean out, or actually a line clean out depending on your style, is because you can run the water at the same time that you're snaking the drain, and this, my friends, is always the best option. And if you can do it, you should do it because it's much more of a thorough job. In some of the videos that you see me snaking drains, there aren't that option. The owner of the unit doesn't want me to install anything new. They just want me to snake the drain. Even after I explain to them it's better, they say, I don't want to spend more money than I need to. I just want you to snake the drain. So I am kind of forced by that person to not install it. But whenever you can, especially in situations like this where everybody above this unit is discharging and it's coming out into this unit, you want to make sure that A, you are flushing while you're snaking. That's what we call this process. You turn on the hot water, and especially if it's a kitchen stack, make sure it's hot. Grease tends to build up in these lines. You turn on the hot water after you put that clean out in, and you just start throwing snakes in. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up putting 8 cables in. 8 cables comes out towards almost 60 feet. I think there was a moment where I thought I felt something that was a little bit hard to get through. That's why as I sent in the coils, I was also running the water at the same time. That way, if there was still something backing up, we would have seen right there. That's why you have to have a bucket handy. So in situations like this, you want to be as thorough as possible. You want to make sure you have a clean out so you can flush the line at the same time. And the best part about the clean out as well is that when your coils come back, they're also clean as well. Clean for the most part. They've been washed in that water that's running through as well. There's nothing worse than having to take your coils out of a drain that you weren't flushing at the same time because they come out with grease and they come out looking all gnarly at the same time. So I hope that made sense. Let's get back to the video.